Okay. Welcome to Great Goodness. I'm Angela Dribbin, and this
I'm
is,
Karen Stewart.
and we're really glad to have you here today. And this is our guest, Cathy Hailey. She's going to be talking to you a little later. Um, First, like, comment, and subscribe if you like what you're seeing. We want to hear what you like about it. We want to know what you're doing, putting goodness out into the world. And if you know of someone else who should be on the show, let us know that. If it's you, let us know that. We want to know. We want to hear what you're doing. Make sure you stay to the end because we're going to have a prompt at the very end, a really cool creative prompt, and you don't want to miss that. So we'll start out with Karen Stewart pulling a card for us.
Yay. Okay. Oh, I'm so excited about today. I can hardly stay in my chair. So today, well, I have selected a deck to pull from today from my satchels of decks, my guilty collecting habit. Anyway, I hope that y'all love this. This card I'm going to pull today is coming from the Herbal Astrology Oracle deck.
That's beautiful.
And this deck was the brainchild of Adriana Ayales, and the artwork is by Josephine Clerks, and it's published by Hay House. Beautiful, beautiful deck. I hope that y'all love that. So I am going to, this is what the back of the cards looks like. Is that lovely?
Gorgeous. There it is.
So we're going to put some good juju out, and we're just doing this today because this is good inspiration for us, right? We'll just pull a card, see what kind of energies we're going to be embracing. Okay, here we go. Oh, chamomile,
Oh, and look at that fawn and the buck too.
right? So this is a deck that is all different kinds of herbs. And it has a guidebook, of course, that tells you the history of the herb and all sorts of meanings.
Mm.
Um, but what I like to do is just look at the card and think about the images and see how that feels. And I am loving these chamomile flowers on here and the animals and the color of the sky. And I believe that there is some moon thing going on in the sky.
Yeah.
There's maybe sun rising. We have a dozing, dreaming person, maybe. So, yeah, so we'll just, there we go. Just going to hold on to that for a while. And you guys, if you feel inspired or want to feel deeper into this, you can always, after you've watched the video, come back and watch the video again and just click stop on your screen, and then you can get a long look at this card. Just see where it takes you. It's all great goodness.
It is. Okay, I'm gonna be one of those people right now, who just jumps in. So chamomile is what I drink all day, every day. I gave up coffee, because it puts so much cortisol into your body, and I don't need any more of that. And and so I drink chamomile all day, every day, and I think it's really, I don't know. So when you pulled it, I was like, oh yeah,
It's
okay.
speaking to you.
Yeah, yeah. So I just had to share that. Okay.
That's cool. I am excited about delving into these images more. And then, and you guys, if you don't have the guidebook, you can always just Google anything about the images that you see in a card or or the names or the numbers on the card, or you can, as I did, always purchase the deck so you have it to look at every day.
Is that a nine? Is
I
the
am not a
chamomile?
compensated person for sharing this card today, let me say.
So is chamomile a nine? I think that is a nine.
Yes, it's a
Okay.
9. And
Okay.
then I believe
Yeah.
it's got the and then it's got I don't know if you could see a phrase
Inner.
there, inner peace, more
Yeah.
words to consider.
Yeah. It and it
Chamomile.
It seems
It is
perfect for me.
that is a peaceful it's a peaceful herb, right?
Yeah.
That's a like calming tea when you drink the chamomile tea.
Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
here we go.
I know. So excited for Kathy. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Karen, your turn. Tell
Okay,
us
I'm
about
so
Kathy.
excited. I get to I'm going to share some written information here about Kathy. So you all have a little window of info here. So Cathy Hailey teaches in Johns Hopkins University's online MA in Teaching Writing program and previously taught English, creative writing, and sponsored the Edis Literary Art Magazine in Prince William County, Virginia. She serves as Northern Region Vice President of the Poetry Society of Virginia, PSV, co hosts Virginia Voices, and organizes In the Company of Laureates. She administers the student contest and Young Poets in the Community program for the PSV and the Jacqueline Potter Young Writers Competition for the Words Works. Cathy earned degrees from Duke University, AB, and George Mason University, MA, English, Writing, and Editing. Her chapbook, I'd Rather Be a Hyacinth, was published by Finishing Line Press. Recent and forthcoming poem publications include Little Free Lit Mag, First Frost, and Photo Specchio. You can visit cathyhaley.com for more great goodness about her. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I just learned something. I did not know that you went to Duke. That is something I just learned just now. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is tell you why Kathy is here today. And I'm going to try not to cry because um Kathy and I met through poetry, and she has this enormous open heart. And it's not a heart that is without like discernment. She does have discernment, but it is an open heart. And I say that because she takes everything in and then sits with it. And this is what makes her so amazing, like to be on a serving on a board with, or to do a project with, or anything, because she she spends time with everything. And
Mhm.
this is how she is as a poet friend. Like we all need those poet friends, right? Well, you know, oh, oh no, Kathy, you might get an onslaught of people's work to read now. But
Right.
because she is one of my favorite people to share my work with, because she spends time with that poem. And I think how
Mm,
fortunate all of her students must have been for all of these years,
yeah.
because it's so easy to look at a poem and try and make it into what you want it to be, or make it say more of what you want it to say. But that's not that poem. Kathy looks at every person, every poem, every situation for what it is supposed to be, for what
All
its
right.
intention is supposed to be. See, I'm going to cry. And that is why we wanted Kathy to be on Great Goodness. And so now, Kathy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Angie. I do agree I take time, but when I was teaching so many students, I didn't always have the benefit of time. I was able to spend more time as students advanced in my creative writing program. So, there were smaller classes as they got to junior and senior year, and people were focused on a particular genre like poetry, and so that made it easier to do so. And online with Johns Hopkins, like the maximum number of students is 15, unless there's an override or something. So it does allow for more time spent. But thank you for such kind words. And I feel the same way about your responses to my poetry, because it's really easy for somebody to just jump on something, and they don't realize that um, their words can be, you know, a little biting and difficult to process. And so I really appreciate your sensitivity. And
Thank you.
because I've been involved with some workshops with you, and because we've shared some poems recently, and just some conversations, I thought I'd start. And also because Karen, my way of knowing both of you to begin with is through poetry,
Yeah.
and Karen through Angie. Um, I thought I'd start by reading a poem that came out of Angie's first tarot card poetry workshop. And it came out of it, but it's only the beginning, like the images at the beginning that began the poem that came from that. it was actually from the few words that I shared on that Zoom, because I wasn't sure where it was going. But when I needed a poem for that, for a thematic idea that I was working toward, I picked that up again, and so this is the poem. It's called 2025. I know some of you share my challenges with dealing with this last few months. 2025, renewal and resolution. Blue waves like mountains dive, falling into flight, arms reaching for water. Lightning strikes. The world we know plunges, thundering through to ocean's floor, Earth's core. Snowfall paints the world white, icicles endangering, imprisoning. Human retreat, animal hibernation, stifle, glimmers of sunshine, sending us tiptoeing out. Warmth, mere drops, seeds, tiny plantings of hope, basking in
Mm.
moments, not seasons.
Uh,
Oh,
So
I
the
I was,
that original image came from one of the tarot cards that Angie pulled in that class.
yeah,
I love that so much. I was having such a hard time not making sounds while you were reading. I
I
was
know.
just like, oh, 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 beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Mm.
And then the second poem I wanted to read is I titled it Holding On. Then somebody else suggested I might title it Letting Go. The title is still
Interesting.
in the process. I even thought of saying both, holding on and letting go. I don't know. If you all have a
Mm.
suggestion, you're welcome to throw it out there. But I'll just call it Holding On for now, and see where it takes us. But Angie, this came out of a conversation we had by text. And it was when it was when I was concerned because my son Neil was flying cross country to go snowboarding. So um, our conversation, I don't know, somehow led me to writing this poem, Holding On. How precious a child, once part of a pair, sibling vanishing when the veil was thinnest. A mother jolted, trembling in silent fear with each peril the sibling pursues. Risk of loss rising in darkness, cross country flight, curvy roads, black ice,
Mm.
blustery wind, snow squalling and piling, snowboarders approaching Mammoth, high elevations, surfing tough terrains, a test of strength, a triumph after challenge. For the mother, a marathon of anxiety.
Ah,
Wow.
Kathy.
I needed your chamomile tea.
Mm.
Yeah. I, you know, it is really interesting to hear this poem too, though, and go back to the last lines and because these poems really exist side by side. Like they're because it's that was okay, I'm having a hard time with my words, but the moment, not the season, right? And that to
Mm.
me is some of and when you said the moment, not the season, one of the things I thought is about grief and even love. I guess everything. It's being in that moment and not being we I don't I am a very attached person, but it's so, but I can't, I'm really striving for being in that moment and not being attached to that whole season. And one of the reasons I'm like that is because I lost my grandmama very young and she was my safe
Mm.
place. She was my whole world. And so after that, I was always, I'm always waiting.
Yeah, yeah.
When will this be no more? And
Mm.
we've had that conversation. And that was 40 years ago. And you've had a much bigger loss. And so, you know,
Yeah, yeah. And since you mentioned that, just for clarification, I lost my daughter Alexandra in a car accident in 2018
Mm.
on Halloween, and um, she was 26 at the time. So it it changed my life. Obviously,
Mhm.
there were a lot of changes right after that. The pandemic came. Well, in between those two things, I retired from full-time teaching. So, you know, everything about my life was changing. And I was also helping my mom out, who's now 94, but weakening. And
Oh my
it's
goodness.
worrisome for me, at this moment. Um, but I mentioned in my bio a publication forthcoming in First Frost, and that's a new thing for me because I for the first time got a haiku published in a haiku journal, and I've been working with haiku with a group kind of weekly. I mean, we don't there are Sundays that we don't meet, but you know, pretty much for the last few years, and I know it's helped me in many ways. Just helped me with noticing and attention and being calm, and also help me hone my language, to try and use fewer words, because my tendency was always to write too much. And so it's kind of a stark opposite, right? But since I'm sharing poetry now, I'll go ahead and share this now as well, because it's related to Alexandra, although it's not clear in the haiku who the she is. My long shadow across the ground where she's buried.
Oh,
And that came out of an actual moment. We make a habit of visiting the cemetery, near Halloween, or sometimes on that day, and on her birthday or near her birthday, which is at the end of January. And so that was just something that I noticed while I was there, and then went home and wrote the haiku. So, you send in a few, and you usually get a rejection. So it was very exciting to get one selected.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that it's one that honors Alexandra makes me feel great.
Yeah.
Kathy,
Absolutely.
that is so beautiful and it's so moving. And I think too the conciseness of it is it even ramps up the level of connection for like this is the first time I've heard that poem. And it gives itself to the listener or the reader. It's an offering.
Yeah, and the ambiguity of it is I think positive, because people can. I mean, Angie, you could apply that to your grandmother, for example.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
The,
It's
I've written a lot about Alexander directly, but sometimes that, leaving it unknown with a pronoun can be more
Hmm.
effective for the reader.
Yes, because we can internalize it. It's like it's so relatable. Like I don't the reader doesn't have to be given the name of who it is or any description. It's not about that. It's for the reader, it's about the connection that they have connected to this deep feeling or thought or just a connection, like a connection with the energy that you had put into that, and that it is a thing itself now that has its own energy that can share and touch people and change people, touch hearts.
Thank you. And that haiku group really changed me as well. Grace Cavalieri invited me to it, but it's with a Zen teacher. So it's very much, it's just a really positive experience to be in, and mostly it's a critique group in a sense. I mean, we share our work
Mhm.
and give each other feedback, but I've learned quite a bit there. In fact, I'm part of like the problem with haiku as a teacher for so many years, because most teachers don't know any better, and I was one of them as well. And we taught students to write haiku 575,
Yeah.
focusing on the syllable counts. And there's so much more to it. And I won't do a haiku lesson now, but look it up. Look up modern American haiku and see what you can learn about it, because it's invaluable. But when I wrote my first chapbook, you mentioned in the that oh, that's the wrong one. I'd rather be a hyacinth. Um, I was still in the 575 mode when I wrote
Mm.
a collection of haiku sonnets, and that's a form most people don't know. Um, but it's something I got from Tom Hunley in the Poetry Gymnasium. Um, and I was always looking for forms to teach my students. When you teach students for 4 years in a row, you're always looking for new ideas, so you're not repetitive. Anyway, I also liked this form for the same reasons of helping you to hone language. It's a
Mhm.
form that is 14 lines, like a Shakespearean sonnet, with that rhyme scheme, but where the stanzas are haiku. So it's very
Oh,
counterintuitive, but it's fun. It's a challenge. I encourage you to try it. And since we're also talking about other kinds of art, so I'll just mention that the cover here is from a collage I made, and
Mm-hmm.
the collage was a bunch of individual photographs of nature that I cut up and made into this design. And it's really funny because, Angie, you were a key person in my process, because
I
I
remember this.
remember I
uh,
cut up all these pictures. At first I just put some pictures in, in a typical collage, like on Facebook, for example. You know what I mean? I'm
Mhm.
like, no, this is not it. And so I started thinking, and I started cutting like pieces of the collage. And so, like, all these pieces of hyacinth are just pieces made into a tutu.
Mhm.
The butterfly I cut out to make the body,
gorgeous.
and the tulip for the um, head, face, and then the stems of the tulips turned into the shoes and the legs, or an
Uh,
upside down tulip buds on the shoes for the ballet shoes. And the way I did this, like, I think the first thing I sent you, Angie, was like a piece of scrap paper cut into pieces like this, making it into this person.
Mhm.
And because I just needed some validation, like, am I nuts here, or can I do this? And you know, she encouraged me, so I went ahead
oh,
with it. So it went from scrap paper to um, copies of photos that I just Xeroxed, so I wouldn't wreck a bunch of printed photos, and then eventually to the printed photos. And it was a long process, but I was really proud of myself, and I feel like it adds a lot to the character of the book. But also, there's a lot of dedication to Alexandra in this book, and she was a dancer in addition to pretty much all the other arts. So I see
mhm.
this ballerina as her, and she was
Yeah.
also like infused in nature,
Oh,
from the time she was a baby. So it all kind of came together for me this way.
It's
And
stunning. It is
it,
absolutely
oh my
stunning.
goodness.
And you feel that. You feel, don't you think, Karen? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it has oh, such good energy. It is just,
thank you.
Hmm.
oh,
And creating the book, I mean, it makes me feel so good, because it honors her and other family members, and other things that I found interesting in my life. But then at the same time that I sent this into Finishing Line Press, I sent this into Finishing Line Press, which was Alexandra's chapbook that she had left. She had a manuscript ready to go, and so both got accepted. And I spent the first year on mine, and then the next year on Alexandra's. So in fact, I'll show you a picture of her on the back.
oh,
So
She's
that is
beautiful.
such a beautiful way to honor her and to share her shine.
thank you. And hers is
Oh my
called
goodness.
Interstate Lines. So anyway, yes. And she did a lot of traveling during this time, and these poems were little poems that she wrote along the way. So anyway, that's the poetry um, part of things. I do have one other poem I could read. I didn't get get um, the image of the artwork, but I do like to write a lot of acrostic poetry. So I also like to honor other people's art by writing poetry that's inspired by it. And so this is a my I guess most recent acrostic poem that was written based on a shawl, and
Oh,
it was like it's actually part of Kathleen Decker's recent anthology project, and she's a PSV vice president in the Eastern region. Um, so a lot of she's a doctor, scientist, so there's a lot of these things have science backgrounds, and so this was called the art was called Half Pie Shawl. And so a
oh,
couple of things.
Uh,
One, it's about harmful algal blooms poisoning the water.
mm.
Um, and it brought up pie. And I was just in that same week of doing this, about to do a workshop where one of the forms of poetry that I teach kids is pie poems, where the number of words or syllables are 314159. And because she titled her shawl Half Pie, I thought, okay, wait, I got to do a poem of pie and a half. So I divided pie by two. And the first lines are 314159. And then it continues with 1570795, which is half of that.
I'm
My
like,
head just my head just exploded. That is like such delightful word geekery. I am just can't wait to hear it.
I was
This is
sort of a math geek
fabulous.
growing up too, in addition to being a writer and
Perfect.
person. So I'm going to read this to you just because it's pretty bizarre, but it's called HAB, which is the abbreviation for harmful algal blooms. HAB, a poem of pi, 3.14159, and half pi, 1.570795, after Michelle Glennon's Half Pie Shawl. Harmful algal blooms, losing control of healthy waterways, poisoning fish, poisoning birds, mammals, humans, sun rays, streaming radiance, cloaking the neck, body heat glazed, transition, wavy stitches, water's natural state, curvilinear ribbons, layered hues, lightening and darkening. The next line is three little curvy stitches. To garter stitches, water's warmth, colors banding, nutrient beads infusing, bright green roving, infiltrating calm conditions, a shawl of looming toxicity. So I'm going to show it to you because
I was gonna
Oh,
ask. Yeah.
oh yeah, I was going to ask too. Oh wow.
I don't know if can I get it
Hmm.
in focus?
It's in focus. It,
Yeah, it's in
yeah.
yeah.
So because there's a zero in the half pi number, that's why I put those little curvy lines, because I figured it looked like the stitches, and
Hmm.
it also expressed the zero because they're not words.
Now, Kathy, I have a question for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
I know with the three of us, I just have to jump in, or I won't get to
Uh,
say it because
yeah.
we are all three talkers. Um, so okay, I know I've read a lot of your work, and you really run the spectrum, right? Like you have haiku, and then you have poems that I mean take up all the space on the page. Like, they have all the words.
Yeah.
What is the difference in those experiences for you
Mm,
when you're writing? Like, does that make
Yeah.
sense?
I finally started to understand this. These poems came from something that wasn't in my head at all when I started writing. Well, I take that back. The one that we conversed about was in my head a little bit. I mean, I knew I wanted to write about that frustration, especially after the crash in the Potomac and all the other, crazy flight information that's come out in the last few months. Like, I'm not always a nervous wreck about people flying, but it was ratcheted up because of all of that.
Mhm.
Um, and so that one I did have a little bit, but somehow I was able to contain it. I don't know, maybe because I'd been practicing that more. But when I write ekphrastically, I don't know I have no idea what I'm writing. I just start writing words, and and sometimes I start over several times, so I kind of know where I'm going later, but I don't know at the beginning. And I think it's easier for me to focus in on words and short phrases that way. But when I'm writing from experience, or when I'm writing about somebody I know, and that is part of what drives me. I like to keep people alive in poetry, whether they're people that
Mhm.
I love who are still here or lost, or even I shared a poem with Angie
Hmm.
about a guy in the garment district who it's called Ode to Charlie. And I didn't plan to read that one today, but my point is I fell in love with this guy on a documentary and decided to write a poem about him. So like it doesn't have to be somebody that I know, but the more information I know, the more information I tend to get on the paper.
Mhm.
And even if I cut back, I'm still in a I'm still writing too much. Even I mean
Mhm.
I don't share things when I first write them because they are more nonfiction like, and so I
Yeah.
have to keep working at it to make it poetry. So anyway, I feel like part of what you're noticing is something that I'm learning, but also I feel like there's still room for longer poems.
Hmm.
And even if even if it seems to be a trend that goes up and down, um, where people respect longer poems versus they don't want to look at them. I don't know. I feel like over the years that it's kind of gone up and down,
Okay. Yeah.
um, and so I just I just keep trying to do the best I can.
Yeah. We were just talking before this, like I saw one of Karen's readings this past weekend, and she was reading some postcard poems that she had
Yeah.
written, and she was like, I don't normally like send off my shorter poems, but they were so powerful, just like the ones you read. And it's okay, and the haiku that you read today, like it's so brief. There's so much in it. And I feel like just like maybe sometimes the writing energy is saying we don't have time for longer poems. Sometimes it's like, well, there's not enough being done in a short poem.
Right.
And
Yeah, but that's not
it's not
necessarily true. I
true.
think that's a crazy story we tell ourselves a lot of times is
Yeah.
like, oh, let me just keep pouring. Let me just let a bunch of stuff go on the page. But sometimes
Yeah.
it's enough to just have that condensed because people are going to have their way with your poem, regardless if you've made it 16 pages or 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. You've done a thing, and then the reader is going to have their way with it also. So it's just it's a kind of an open exchange, and I don't think one's better than the other. It's just like whatever needs to be done is going to end up being the way it is.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like I need to write a lot to get it out and then figure
Mhm.
out what's important. So, sometimes
Yeah.
it's a matter of just the Madman draft. If you've ever read the Betty Flowers article, Madman, Architect, Carpenter, Judge,
You sent it to me.
the Madman is really important, and I've learned to embrace it and tried to get my students to embrace it, because if you let the critic be on your shoulder from the beginning, you'd never write anything. So, or at least in my case,
Yeah.
that would prevent me from being productive.
I
And
love that.
I think you know actually, Karen, I think you said this, or maybe both of you said it in your opening shows, but it's the process that matters, not the product so much. I mean, yes,
Right.
we want products, um, but being being someone who is regularly creating is one of my most important goals, whether that's in writing or I've been doing more photography. I joined this group that Derek Kannemeyer, another poet artist in Virginia, recommended called 52 Frames. And actually, if am I able to share screen because I
Yeah. Yeah.
can share something here? Oh, it says it's not turned on.
Oh, that's my fault.
Request.
Okay. I just said
Tech,
yeah. I'm
tech
like, yeah,
issues.
yeah, sure
Tech
you can.
issues.
A small one.
Now will it do it?
You know what? I'll see because I might not have something set up right, so
Okay.
possible it won't. Oh,
I'm I'm always afraid of sharing myself because I usually have like 50 million windows open and I think,
yeah.
okay, let me share this and then who knows what's
I
going to
know,
actually
I
pop up on
know.
Those
everybody's
two.
screen.
Um, but are you seeing a screen yet?
No.
Nope.
No. Okay. I have a feeling it might not work. So
Okay.
I'll just talk about it. It's okay.
That always works.
We've got
Yes. Well, actually, and I have one to show you. So when I joined 52 Frames, one of the earlier favorite photos I had was this one. I've been doing it over 2 years now, so it's something that asks you to submit one photo each week. And I love bluebirds and hadn't really had them here, much before. So I was really excited to be able to get this shot. Is it focused? Because I can't tell.
I can see it and it
Yeah,
looks
it
like a
looks
love
great.
affair. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Uh,
yeah. So,
yeah.
this is just like it's not about perfection. It's about what we were just talking about. Just it's kind of like being in the seat as a writer. It's picking up the camera as a photographer. I never called myself a photographer, but now I can say I take pictures every week. And so I've done 2 years. That's 104 plus however many weeks we've had since January. So it's been really good for me because they give you a prompt. Last week's was egg. That was an unusual one. It didn't matter what you did, but you had to have an egg in your photo. Um, I did something with a crystal bowl and a Turkish lamp that has blue light. It's very bizarre. It's more abstract, but it was fun because you learn just by playing around with whatever the prompt is. This week's is a little bit more technical. It's about shallow depth of field. I'm always challenged by the ones that actually require you to know how to use the camera rather than just playing.
Well,
But you can use a cell phone, and I
yeah.
did for the egg, and I probably will use it's an SLR for this depth of field thing. But anyway, I just go back and forth with whatever works.
Well, I love this, and I think it's a great transition for us and a great place for us to go into the prompt because you were just talking about prompts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I do want to say, Kathy, we loved having
Uh,
you. And those of you who are listening, like show Kathy the love, tell her what you loved about what she did. And like she mentioned a lot of things. So I'll try and like put those in the notes, how to find those different things,
yeah.
those different places so you can participate too, those different pieces of information. But if you have questions, put them in the comments and I'll make sure Kathy gets them and has to answer them. So, so,
Oh,
Okay,
so
and can I send you a link for
yes.
Skull a Day? One like the same kind of idea, like Poem a Day. Alexander had this teacher who was participating in a thing called Skull a Day, and he published a book of skulls. And I have the link to this thing. The whole idea is just that you do something every day, but his theme was skull. And when she had a class in creative advertising, she got the assignment Band-Aids and had to do 54 Band-Aids in a Band-Aid art related things in a semester. So anyway, I'll send a couple links sent to you.
Yeah, do that. And
That's
those will
fun.
be in the notes down below. So be sure to give a like, a comment, or subscribe. And also be sure to follow this advice that you're getting from these two
Right?
creators, Karen and Kathy. Like create, just make, just
Yeah.
just do
Yeah.
it. Um, no judgment, no madman sitting on your shoulder, like criticizing you. Okay, so this is your prompt, and I'll try and make this quick, but so I'm an astrologer. Everyone should know that by now. But Uranus is a planet. It's a planet of disruption and a planet of separation. It can be where life is chaotic, but it what it really is doing is creating a lasting change. And when it creates when there's a chaos, when there's a disruption that feels like an accident or feels like something like that, it's oftentimes because we are resisting the change. And so that energy builds up in our souls, and it has to be released. Or that energy is building up, and when that energy is being built up, because our soul knows it's time for our change. Our soul knows it's time for us to move on. And it's building, building, building. And it's like, hey, you're not listening to me, conscious mind. I'm going to draw this to you. So there may be a job loss. There may be a breakup. There may just be a shift and change, in assets. And but these don't have to be terrible. So don't be afraid of Uranus, okay? That's not it. The thing is to to be open and to move with it, to just create, for example,
Mm.
right? Don't fight that urge. And so here is the prompt. Is there something that has been difficult for you to change? And maybe it took an incident or an accident, like an outside pressure to force the change. Is there something that like you may not even have spoken it yet, but you can feel it's time to change? Right into those. What do they feel like in your body? What does it feel like in your body to go towards it? What does it feel like in your body to resist it? And if is there an unhappiness? That's the other thing that Uranus works with. What does unhappiness feel like? How do we even know when we're unhappy? Like if it was a season, what would it be? And have you accepted that unhappiness? Or are you ready to move beyond that unhappiness? And what does that joy look like? Do you know what your joy would be? Do you know what your joy is? If you could have anything. And so that's your prompt um,
Mm.
for today. So I could not have enjoyed myself more, and I hope y'all did too. And
Oh,
I hope everyone who listens, because I know there are a lot of people who love Kathy and will want to hear this, and there's a lot of people who will love Kathy to
right?
come. And
Yes.
so I hope you stayed. I hope you're here, and I hope you'll show Kathy the love. I hope you'll show great goodness of love. I hope you'll be back. So like, comment, subscribe. It's all great
Be
goodness.
inspired. Be
Yes.
inspired. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for the
Thank you.
opportunity. It was
Oh,
absolutely wonderful being with both of you.
oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank